The afternoon sun hung low over Meadowbrook Valley, painting the rolling hills in shades of amber and rose. Nora Bennett gripped the steering wheel of her aging hatchback, willing it to make the final stretch to her grandparents' cottage. After a difficult year of budget cuts at the city school where she taught art, followed by a painful breakup with her ambitious ex-boyfriend who deemed her dreams too small, she needed this escape. The engine had been making concerning noises for the past 20 miles, but Nora had hoped it would hold out. That hope evaporated when a loud grinding sound erupted from beneath the hood, followed by a series of alarming clanks. The car shuddered, slowed, and finally gave up completely. Rolling to a stop on the shoulder of the quiet country road, Nora let her head fall back against the seat. Of course this would happen now. She checked her phone. No signal. The road stretched empty in both directions, flanked by wildflower meadows and old stone walls. Beautiful, certainly, but not particularly helpful when stranded. She climbed out of the car, popping the hood even though she had absolutely no idea what she was looking at. Steam rose from the engine in lazy wisps. She stared at the tangle of metal and hoses, hoping inspiration would strike. It did not. The crunch of gravel made her turn. A dusty pickup truck was approaching, slowing as it neared her car. Nora felt a flutter of nervousness. She was alone on an isolated road. But as the truck pulled up behind her and the driver stepped out, her anxiety shifted into something else entirely. The man walking toward her looked like he belonged in this landscape. He wore faded work jeans, a simple green Henley shirt with the sleeves pushed up, and boots that had clearly seen plenty of use. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and his face had the healthy color of someone who spent his days outdoors. When he smiled, it was warm and genuine, crinkling the corners of his hazel eyes. "Looks like you could use some help," he said, his voice carrying the easy confidence of someone comfortable in his own skin. Nora found herself smiling back despite her frustration. That would be the understatement of the year. "I think it might be terminal." He approached the open hood, his movements relaxed and unhurried. "Let me take a look. I'm James, by the way. James Sullivan. Nora Bennett." She watched as he leaned over the engine, his hands moving with practiced knowledge through the various components. There was something immediately trustworthy about him, something genuine that she found herself drawn to. "The radiator hose has split pretty badly," James said after a moment, straightening up. "And your engine's been running hot for a while from the looks of it. Did you notice the temperature gauge climbing?" Nora bit her lip. "I might have noticed something like that. I was hoping it would just sort itself out." James laughed, a rich sound that made her want to smile. "Cars don't really work that way, unfortunately. Where are you headed?" "I can give you a lift. My grandparents live just outside Meadowbrook, the Whitmore cottage near the old mill. But I hate to impose. No imposition at all. I work at the estate gardens just past there. I can tow your car to Brennan's garage in town tomorrow. He's fair and honest. Won't overcharge you." As James secured a tow rope to her car and helped her transfer her bags to his truck, Nora found herself stealing glances at him. His hands were strong and capable, marked with the calluses of manual work. He moved with an easy grace, lifting her heavy suitcase as if it weighed nothing. "So you're a gardener?" she asked as they climbed into the truck. "Something like that," James replied, starting the engine. "I work with plants, help things grow. What brings you to Meadowbrook?" "I'm an art teacher." Or I was. Budget cuts. I needed a break from the city. Time to figure out what comes next. My grandparents had been asking me to visit for months. Sometimes the best answers come when we stop looking so hard for them, James said quietly. Meadowbrook has a way of helping people find what they need. They drove through the golden afternoon light, conversation flowing easily between them. James told her about the gardens he tended, describing plants and growing seasons with genuine passion. Nora talked about her students, the joy of watching young people discover their creativity. Neither mentioned relationships or past hurts, but there was an unspoken understanding between them, a recognition of kindred spirits seeking peace. When they pulled up to the Whitmore cottage, Grandma Rose was already hurrying down the garden path, her silver hair gleaming in the sunlight. Grandpa Thomas followed more slowly, leaning on his walking stick but beaming with delight. "Gosh, Nora, Rose called out, enveloping her granddaughter in a fierce hug. Then she noticed James climbing out of the truck. And who's this helpful young man? This is James Sullivan. He rescued me when my car died on the road, Nora explained. James shook hands with both grandparents, his manner respectful and warm. Just happened to be passing by at the right time. You must come in for some tea, Rose insisted. Anyone who helps our Nora deserves proper thanks. I appreciate the offer, ma'am, but I should get back. Long day tomorrow in the gardens? James turned to Nora, and for a moment their eyes met and held. If you need any help while you're here, or if you want a tour of the local area, I'd be happy to show you around. I'd like that, Nora heard herself say, her heart beating a little faster after James drove away. Rose linked arms with Nora and guided her into the cottage. What a lovely young man. So polite and handsome, too, Grandma Nora protested, but she was smiling. I'm just saying, dear. He looked at you like you were the most interesting thing he'd seen all year. That night, lying in her childhood bedroom with its sloped ceiling and view of the stars, Nora replayed the afternoon in her mind. James's smile, his gentle humor, the way he had listened when she spoke, really listened. As if her words mattered. She had come to Meadowbrook seeking peace and simplicity. She had not expected to meet someone who embodied both those things so perfectly. Someone who seemed content with a humble life, who found joy in working with his hands and watching things grow. Her ex had always wanted more. Bigger, better, pushing constantly toward the next achievement. Being with him had been exhausting. But James seemed different, grounded, real. As sleep finally claimed her, Nora smiled into the darkness. Tomorrow, she would explore the village, settle into the rhythm of this quiet place. And maybe, if she was lucky, she would see James again, what she could not know. As she drifted into dreams, was that the humble gardener who had rescued her carried secrets that would change everything. That his calloused hands also signed multi-million-dollar contracts. That the man who spoke so lovingly of nurturing growth was himself one of the most powerful executives in the country. But for now, in this perfect moment of not knowing, Nora simply felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Hope. Morning in Meadowbrook arrived with birdsong and the scent of honeysuckle drifting through Nora's open window. She stretched lazily, feeling more rested than she had in months. The cottage wrapped around her like a warm embrace, filled with the comforting sounds of her grandmother humming in the kitchen and the gentle clink of breakfast dishes. Downstairs, Rose had prepared a feast. Fresh eggs from the neighbor's chickens, homemade bread still warm from the oven, and strawberry jam that gleamed like rubies in a crystal jar. Thomas sat at the worn oak table, reading the local paper through his spectacles. "Sleep well, dear?" Rose asked, pouring tea into a delicate floral cup. "Better than I have in ages," Nora admitted, settling into her chair. The morning light streamed through lace curtains, creating patterns on the tablecloth. "That's the Meadowbrook air," Thomas said with satisfaction. "Does wonders for the soul." Speaking of which, young James stopped by early this morning. Said he arranged for your car to be towed to Brennan's. Should have an estimate by this afternoon. Nora's heart did a small skip. He didn't have to do that. Rose exchanged a knowing look with her husband. "He said he wanted to make sure you were taken care of. Left you this?" She handed Nora a small pot containing a cheerful yellow primrose. A note was tucked into the soil. Nora unfolded the paper. The handwriting was neat and confident. "I thought you might like some color for your room. If you're free this afternoon, I'd love to show you the community garden. It's the heart of Meadowbrook. James." "Oh, that's just lovely," Rose practically sang. "You should absolutely go." "Grandma, it's just a friendly gesture." Friendly Thomas chuckled. "That boy's smitten. I know the look. Wore it myself 50 years ago when I first saw your grandmother." Nora tried to hide her smile behind her teacup. But her grandparents saw right through her. That afternoon, Nora walked into the village center, taking in the charm of Meadowbrook properly for the first time. The main street curved gently, lined with brick buildings that had stood for generations. A bakery displayed golden loaves in its window. The bookshop had a handwritten sign advertising a poetry reading. Everything felt intentionally slow, peacefully resistant to the rushing world beyond. She found the community garden tucked behind the old church, a riot of color and life contained within a white picket fence. Raised beds overflowed with vegetables and herbs. Flowering vines climbed trellises. A small greenhouse gleamed in the sunlight. And there, kneeling beside a bed of tomato plants, was James. He looked up as the gate creaked, and his face transformed with genuine pleasure.
"You came."
The primrose was a convincing argument, Nora said, walking down the gravel path toward him. "It's beautiful here." James stood, brushing dirt from his jeans. "This is my favorite place in town. Everyone contributes what they can, takes what they need. It's about community, connection." He gestured around the space. "Mrs. Chen grows the best bok choy you've ever tasted. Old Mr. Brennan keeps the roses. And that section there belongs to the elementary school. Kids learn where food actually comes from." "You really love this?" Nora observed, watching the animation in his face as he spoke. "I do. There's something honest about working with soil and seeds. You put in the effort, treat things with care, and you get something real in return. No shortcuts, no pretending." He paused, then added softly, "Not like a lot of things in this world." Something in his tone made Nora curious, but before she could ask, James smiled and held out a hand. "Come on, let me show you the herb spiral. I think you'll appreciate it from an artistic perspective." His hand was warm and rough in hers. He led her to a circular raised bed built in a spiral pattern. Different herbs planted at varying heights to create a living sculpture. Lavender, rosemary, thyme, and sage created layers of green and purple, filling the air with fragrance. "This is incredible," Nora breathed. "It's functional art, exactly." James seemed delighted by her reaction. Beauty and purpose together. That's what good design should be. They spent the next hour wandering through the garden. James taught her to identify plants by touch and smell, his voice patient and warm. He showed her how to check soil moisture, how to tell when tomatoes were perfectly ripe, how to encourage bees with the right flowering plants. His knowledge was deep but worn lightly, shared with enthusiasm rather than showing off. When they reached the small tool shed, James pulled out 2 cold bottles of lemonade from a cooler, made by the church ladies. They keep a stash here for anyone working in the heat. They sat on a weathered bench beneath an apple tree, sipping the tart sweet drink. Bees hummed lazily in the clover at their feet. The afternoon had that timeless quality, where minutes stretched and the rest of the world seemed very far away. "Can I ask you something?" Nora said, turning to face him. "You talk about this work like it's everything to you. Have you always been a gardener?" James was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "I've done other things. Spent time in places where everything moved fast and nothing felt real. Where people measured worth in all the wrong ways." He met her eyes. "But this, helping things grow, being part of something genuine, that's what matters to me now." "I understand that," Nora said quietly. "My ex-boyfriend never got why I wanted to teach art to kids instead of pursuing gallery shows or commercial design. He said I was settling, wasting my potential. He was wrong." James's voice was firm. "Teaching is one of the most important things anyone can do. You're shaping lives, opening eyes to beauty and possibility. That's not settling. That's choosing what's real over what's flashy." Nora felt something tight in her chest loosen. "Thank you for saying that. I mean it." James reached over and gently brushed a leaf from her hair, his fingers lingering for just a moment. "You should never apologize for valuing substance over status." Their eyes met and held. The air between them felt charged, full of unspoken understanding. James leaned slightly closer, and Nora's breath caught, but then voices called out from the garden entrance. A group of elderly women had arrived with gardening baskets, chattering cheerfully. The moment broke. James stood, waving to the newcomers. "That's the Tuesday afternoon crew. They'll talk your ear off if we're not careful, but they're wonderful." As they walked back toward the main street, James asked, "Are you free tomorrow morning? I'd like to show you something special." "What kind of something?" "It's a surprise, but I think you'll love it. Trust me." Nora looked at his open, honest face and felt her walls crumbling. Yes, I trust you. The next morning, James arrived at the cottage just after sunrise, driving his dusty pickup. Dress for walking, he'd told her, and Nora had chosen comfortable jeans and sneakers. Pulling her hair into a loose braid, they drove out of town, into the hills where morning mist still clung to the valleys. James turned onto a narrow track that wound through old-growth forest, eventually parking in a small clearing. This way, he said. Offering his hand to help her navigate the uneven ground, they hiked for perhaps 20 minutes, climbing steadily. Nora was breathing hard by the time James stopped at what appeared to be just another section of forest. But then he pushed aside a curtain of hanging willow branches, revealing a hidden glen. Nora gasped. The space was magical. A small waterfall cascaded into a crystal-clear pool surrounded by moss-covered rocks and wildflowers. Shafts of sunlight pierced the canopy, creating pools of golden light. It felt like stepping into a fairy tale. How did you find this place? She whispered, not wanting to break the spell. I spend a lot of time walking these hills. This spot has always felt sacred to me. Somewhere real, untouched by the complications of the outside world. James sat on a flat rock near the water's edge, and Nora joined him. I've never brought anyone here before? Never? Never. He turned to look at her, his hazel eyes serious. I wanted to share it with you. You're the first person I've met in a long time who I think really sees things, really values what matters. Nora's heart hammered in her chest. James, I know we've only just met, he continued, his voice soft but intense. And maybe this is crazy, but I feel like I can be completely myself with you. No pretending, no hiding. Just real. I feel the same way, Nora admitted. Being with you is easy in a way nothing has been easy for a very long time. James reached out, his fingers finding hers, intertwining gently. They sat like that as the waterfall sang its ancient song, as birds called to each other in the canopy above, as the morning light grew stronger and more golden. Tell me something true, James said quietly. Something you don't usually tell people. Nora thought for a moment. I'm scared that wanting a simple life means I'm not ambitious enough. That maybe my ex was right, and I'm hiding from my potential instead of chasing it. And what would you be chasing? I don't know. That's what frightens me. Everyone else seems so sure about what they want, what success looks like. But when I imagine my perfect life, it's just peace. A small studio where I can paint. Students who actually care. Someone to share quiet mornings with. That feels like enough, but maybe it shouldn't be. James squeezed her hand. What if enough is actually everything? What if the world has it backwards, and the people chasing more and more are the ones who are lost? Is that what you believe? It's what I've learned. His voice carried a weight of experience. I've seen what the chase does to people. How it empties them out, makes them forget what they loved in the first place. The bravest thing you can do is know what's enough and be satisfied with it. They stayed at the hidden waterfall until the sun was high, talking about everything and nothing. James told her about the different trees in the forest, the ecosystem that supported them. Nora described her favorite artworks, why certain paintings moved her to tears. They discovered shared loves of old movies, thunderstorms, and the smell of libraries. When they finally hiked back to the truck, Nora felt lighter than she had in years. James drove slowly back to town, neither of them wanting the morning to end. As they pulled up to the cottage, he turned to her with a shy smile. There's a barn dance tomorrow night at the Grange Hall. Nothing fancy, just locals having fun. Would you like to go with me? Are you asking me on a date, James Sullivan? His smile widened. I am. Very much so. Then yes. Absolutely yes. That evening, as Nora helped her grandmother prepare dinner, Rose kept shooting her knowing looks. You're glowing, dear. Am I? Like a lantern. That young man has quite an effect on you. Nora couldn't deny it. Grandma, is it possible to fall for someone this quickly? It feels reckless. Rose patted her hand with flour-dusted fingers. Your grandfather proposed to me after 2 weeks? When you know, you know. And that boy looks at you like you hung the moon and stars. He's different from anyone I've ever met. So genuine, so content with a simple life. No games, no pretense. Those are rare qualities, Rose agreed. Treasure them. As Nora lay in bed that night, she thought about James's calloused hands and easy smile. His passion for growing things and helping his community. She thought about the hidden waterfall and the trust it represented. Sharing a secret place with someone new, she had come to Meadowbrook broken and uncertain. But maybe, just maybe, she was exactly where she needed to be. With someone who valued the same things she did. Someone real. Tomorrow, there would be a dance, and she would wear her favorite sundress and let James spin her around a crowded floor. Tomorrow, she would take another step toward something that felt like it could be beautiful. For the first time since her life had fallen apart, Nora felt like she was building something new, something true, something worth keeping. She fell asleep smiling, dreaming of gardens and waterfalls and a man whose eyes held more kindness than she had ever known. The evening of the barn dance arrived with the sky painted in shades of coral and lavender. Nora stood before the mirror in her childhood bedroom, smoothing down her favorite sundress. It was simple, a soft blue cotton with small white flowers scattered across the fabric, but it made her feel like herself. She had left her hair loose, falling in natural waves past her shoulders, kept her makeup light. Rose appeared in the doorway, her eyes misting. "You look absolutely beautiful, sweetheart. It's just a dance." "Grandma, it's never just anything when your heart is involved." Rose came forward, fastening a delicate silver necklace around Nora's neck. "This was mine when I was your age." For luck, the sound of tires on gravel announced James's arrival. Nora's stomach fluttered with nervous excitement as she made her way downstairs. When she opened the door, her breath caught. James stood on the porch holding a small bouquet of wildflowers, clearly picked from the meadows around town. He wore clean jeans, a crisp white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, and boots that had been polished until they shone. His hair was slightly damp, as if he had just showered, and when he saw her, his face lit up with such pure appreciation that Nora felt her cheeks warm. "You look stunning," he said softly, offering the flowers. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." Thomas appeared behind Nora, studying James with grandfatherly scrutiny. "Take care of our girl, son." "I will, sir. You have my word." The Grange Hall sat on the edge of town, a large wooden structure that had hosted generations of community gatherings. As they approached, Nora could hear fiddle music spilling out into the warm evening air, accompanied by laughter and the stomp of dancing feet. Inside, the hall had been transformed. String lights crisscrossed the ceiling, creating a canopy of stars. Tables laden with potluck dishes lined one wall. A small band occupied the stage, playing lively folk music that made it impossible to stand still. People of all ages filled the dance floor, from elderly couples moving with practiced grace to children spinning wildly with pure joy. James kept his hand on the small of Nora's back as they entered, guiding her through the crowd. People called out greetings to him, clearly fond of the humble gardener who helped their community flourish. He introduced Nora to what seemed like half the town, each person welcoming her warmly. "Ready to dance?" James asked, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "Should warn you, I'm not very good at this kind of dancing. Good thing I am." He pulled her onto the floor, just as the band launched into a quick-paced reel. What followed was a whirlwind of spinning and laughter. James was an excellent dancer, leading her confidently through steps she did not know, catching her when she stumbled, making her feel graceful, even when she was certain she looked ridiculous. His hand was firm and warm in hers, his other hand steady at her waist. When he spun her out and pulled her back, she collided with his chest, both of them breathless and grinning. "See? You're a natural," he said, his voice close to her ear. They danced through several songs, till both were flushed and laughing. When a slower melody began, James drew her close, and Nora rested her head against his shoulder. They swayed together, barely moving, just existing in the moment. "Thank you for bringing me here," Nora murmured. "This is perfect. You're perfect," James replied, so quietly she almost missed it. She pulled back to look at him, and the expression on his face made her heart stop. There was tenderness there, and longing, and something deeper that she was afraid to name. His hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing gently across her skin. Nora, but before he could finish, a commotion erupted near the entrance. A sleek black car had pulled up outside, visible through the open doors. A woman in an expensive business suit emerged, speaking urgently into her phone. She scanned the hall, her eyes landing on James, and her expression shifted to relief mixed with exasperation. "There you are," the woman called out. Striding across the dance floor with the confidence of someone used to parting crowds, "I've been trying to reach you all day. We have a situation with the Singapore contract that requires your immediate attention." The music faltered. Conversations stopped. Everyone turned to stare. James's face had gone pale. "Patricia, not now. Mr. Sullivan, the board is waiting. They need your approval on the merger terms by morning, and you're the only one who can, Mr. Sullivan," Nora repeated, her voice sounding distant to her own ears. She stepped back from James, confusion flooding through her. What is she talking about? Patricia seemed to notice Nora for the first time, her professional mask slipping into awkwardness. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were in the middle of something personal. But, sir, this really cannot wait." James reached for Nora's hand, but she pulled away. "Nora, please, let me explain." "Explain what exactly?" Her voice was rising now, drawing even more attention. "Who is this woman? What board? What merger?" The room had gone completely silent, except for the shuffle of uncomfortable feet. Thomas appeared at Nora's elbow, his weathered face creased with concern. James ran a hand through his hair, looking more distressed than she had ever seen him. "Can we talk outside, please?" Nora felt numb as she followed him out of the hall, vaguely aware of Patricia trailing behind, still clutching her phone. The warm evening air did nothing to clear the fog in her mind. Once they were away from prying eyes, standing in the shadows beside the building, James turned to face her. "My full name is James Sullivan. I'm the CEO of Sullivan Holdings. It's a multinational corporation based in New York. I came to Meadowbrook 6 months ago because I needed to step away from that world. I needed to remember who I was underneath all the expectations and pressure." Nora stared at him as if seeing a stranger. "You're a CEO, a billionaire. The money doesn't matter to me. It never has. That's why I left. But you lied to me." Her voice cracked. "You let me believe you were just a gardener. You let me tell you about my fears of not being ambitious enough, of wanting a simple life, and all along you were." "I never lied," James insisted. "I just didn't tell you everything. And I am a gardener, Nora. Everything I showed you, everything we did together that was real, that's who I really am, no?" She shook her head, tears beginning to blur her vision. "The real you signs merger contracts and sits on boards. The real you has assistants who track you down at country dances. What we had, that was just you playing pretend, slumming it in the simple life while your actual life waited for you back in the city. That's not fair." Pain flashed across James's face. "You don't understand what it's like to live in that world. Everyone wants something from you. No one sees you. They only see your wealth, your influence. When I met you, you looked at me like I was just a person. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How precious? So I was what? A novelty. The naive art teacher who didn't know any better?" "You were real," James said desperately. "You are real. Everything I feel for you is real." Patricia cleared her throat awkwardly from where she stood by the car. "Sir, I really do need an answer about Singapore." "Give me a minute," James snapped, then immediately looked apologetic. Nora laughed bitterly. "And there he is. The man who snaps at his employees and makes million-dollar decisions. That's the real James Sullivan. I'm both people, Nora. The gardener and the CEO. The man who loves working with soil and the man who built a company. Why can't you see that both are true? Because one of them was honest with me and one of them wasn't." Tears were streaming down her face now. "I opened up to you. I trusted you. And you let me pour out my insecurities about wanting less while you were secretly one of the people at the top. The kind of person my ex wanted me to be more. Like, I never wanted you to be anything other than..." exactly who you are. But you didn't trust me. Enough to tell me who you really were." Nora's voice dropped to a whisper. "What does that say, James?" He looked gutted. "I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew, everything would change. That you'd look at me differently. That what we were building would shatter. Well, congratulations. You were right." She turned away, wrapping her arms around herself. "I need to go home." "Don't follow me, Nora, please," I said. "Don't follow me." She walked back toward the hall, her vision swimming with tears. Thomas met her at the door, taking one look at her face before wrapping his arm around her shoulders and guiding her to his old sedan. They drove home in silence, her grandfather's presence a comfort, even though he asked no questions. Rose was waiting on the porch, and one look at Nora's tear-stained face had her pulling her granddaughter into a fierce embrace. "Oh, sweetheart, come inside." That night, curled up in her childhood bed with her grandmother, stroking her hair, Nora told her everything. About James's hidden identity, about feeling betrayed and foolish, about how the perfect, simple life she thought she had found was built on incomplete truths. "Do you love him?" Rose asked quietly. "I don't know. I thought I was falling for him, but I don't even know who he really is. Don't you? Think about the man you spent time with. His kindness, his passion for growing things, his care for the community. That was real, wasn't it? But he lied to me, Grandma, did he? Or did he simply not tell you everything about his past?" Rose was gentle but firm. "We all have parts of ourselves we're afraid to show, dear. Parts we fear will change how people see us. Maybe he was wrong to wait so long to tell you, but maybe he was also just scared of losing something precious." Nora wanted to argue, but exhaustion pulled her under. She fell into a restless sleep, dreaming of gardens that turned into corporate boardrooms, of waterfalls that dried up, of hands reaching for her that she could not quite grasp. She woke to gray morning light and the sound of rain pattering against the window. Her eyes felt swollen, her heart heavy. She lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling, trying to sort through the tangle of her emotions. A soft knock came at the door. "Nora, there's someone here to see you." Her heart leaped and plummeted in the same instant. She dragged herself out of bed, pulling on a cardigan over her pajamas, made her way downstairs. James stood in the parlor, looking like he had not slept at all. His clothes were rumpled, his eyes red-rimmed. When he saw her, relief and apprehension warred on his face. "I know you said not to follow you," he began, "but I couldn't leave things like this. I need you to understand." "I'm listening," Nora said quietly, sitting in her grandfather's armchair. James remained standing, as if too agitated to sit. "My father built Sullivan Holdings from nothing. He was brilliant and driven, and he wanted me to carry on his legacy. So I did. I went to the right schools, got the right degrees, took over the company when he retired. And I was good at it. Really good. We expanded into new markets, tripled our revenue. On paper, I was incredibly successful." He paused, his hands clenching and unclenching, but I was miserable. I worked 18-hour days. Every relationship I tried to have fell apart because people were more interested in my money than in me. I couldn't trust anyone's motives. I forgot what it felt like to do something just because it brought me joy. I was 35 years old and I realized I had no idea who I actually was apart from my job title. "So you ran away," Nora said. I took a leave of absence. Told the board I needed 6 months to a year to clear my head. Came to Meadowbrook because I had visited once as a child and remembered it being peaceful. I rented a small cottage, started volunteering at the community garden. I learned to slow down, to find satisfaction in simple things. And I discovered that I actually loved it. Working with my hands, being part of a real community, not having every interaction be about what I could do for someone. Finally sat down, perching on the edge of the sofa. When I met you, it felt like a gift. You looked at me and saw a gardener, just a regular person, and that's exactly what I wanted to be. I should have told you sooner. I know that. But I was terrified that if you knew, you'd see me differently. That what we had would become complicated. It's complicated anyway, Nora pointed out. I know. His voice was raw. But Nora, everything I told you about what matters, about valuing substance over status, I meant all of it. That's why I left my old life. That's why I came here. I don't want to be the CEO who makes merger decisions. I want to be the person who knows when tomatoes are ripe and how to make things grow. But you can't just stop being who you are. You have responsibilities, company employees who depend on you. I'm working on transitioning leadership to my executive team. I want to step down permanently. Keep a small advisory role, but nothing more. I want to stay here in Meadowbrook. I want to build a real life, the kind I never had before. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. I want to build it with you. Nora's breath caught. James, I'm in love with you. I know it's fast. I know we haven't known each other long, but I've never been more certain of anything. You make me want to be the best version of myself. Not the successful CEO, but the man who can make you smile, who can share quiet mornings and simple joys with you. That's the life I want. Tears were sliding down Nora's cheeks again, but this time they felt different. I was falling in love with you too. That's why it hurt so much to find out you weren't who I thought you were. I am exactly who you thought I was, James insisted. The money, the company, that's just circumstance. The man who took you to the waterfall, who danced with you last night, who thinks you're the most remarkable person he's ever met. That's who I really am. How do I know what's real? Because you felt it. We both felt it. That connection, that ease, that sense of coming home. Money can't buy that. Status can't create that. It's just real, pure, and simple. Nora stood up, walking to the window. The rain had stopped, and weak sunlight was breaking through the clouds, illuminating the wet garden in silver light. She thought about everything James had said, about the man she had come to know, about the fear in his eyes when he thought he had lost her. I need you to promise me something, she said finally. Turning to face him, anything, no more secrets. If we do this, if we try to make this work, I need complete honesty. About your life, your past, your plans, everything. James stood, crossing the room to stand before her. I promise. Complete honesty, always. I need time. Time to process all of this, to figure out what it means for us. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. He reached out hesitantly, and when she did not pull away, he took her hands in his. I'll wait as long as it takes. You're worth waiting for. They stood like that for a long moment, hands clasped, eyes locked. Then, slowly, Nora leaned forward and rested her forehead against his chest. His arms came around her immediately, holding her close but gently, as if she were something infinitely precious. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too, but maybe that means it matters. Over the next few weeks, James kept his promise. He showed Nora financial statements from his company, explained his transition plan, introduced her to Patricia properly so she could understand that side of his life. He took her to his cottage and showed her the simple way he had been living, the books on gardening and sustainability that lined his shelves, the tiny kitchen where he cooked simple meals. He also continued to be the person she had first fallen for. They worked side by side in the community garden. He taught her to identify bird calls. They hiked to the hidden waterfall and sat for hours just talking. He met her vulnerability with his own, sharing stories of his lonely childhood as the heir to a fortune, his failed engagement to a woman who had wanted his money more than him, his fear that he would never find something real, and slowly, carefully, Nora's heart began to trust again. She saw that he really was both people, the CEO and the gardener, and that the two did not have to be in conflict. She saw that his choice to step away from wealth and status was genuine, that he valued the same things she did. One evening, as summer began to shift toward fall, they sat on the porch of Rose and Thomas's cottage, watching fireflies blink in the gathering dusk. James had just finished helping Thomas repair a section of fence, and he smelled of sawdust and honest work. I talked to the board today, he said quietly. My transition is official. I'll be done completely by the end of the year. How do you feel about that? Relieved? Free? He turned to look at her. Ready to start the life I actually want. And what does that life look like? A small house here in Meadowbrook. Maybe expanding the community garden, starting a program to teach sustainable farming. Mornings with you. A simple, honest, real life. He paused. If you'll have me in it? Nora smiled, reaching for his hand. I think I'd like that very much, yeah? Yeah, because I fell in love with a man who values kindness over status, growth over profit, connection over achievement. And whether he's a gardener or a CEO or both, those are the things that matter. That's who you really are. James pulled her close, and when he kissed her, it tasted of hope and new beginnings. It tasted of truth and trust rebuilt. It tasted of a future neither of them had planned, but both wanted desperately. Behind them, through the cottage window, Rose and Thomas watched with satisfied smiles. I told you, Rose whispered to her husband. When you know, you know. And that boy knows, Thomas agreed. Our girl's going to be just fine. The fireflies danced in the darkness, and somewhere in the hills, the hidden waterfall sang its eternal song. Nora had come to Meadowbrook, broken and lost, seeking peace and simplicity. She had found those things. She had found something more as well. She had found a love built not on pretense or status, but on shared values and honest hearts. She had found someone who saw her truly and loved her completely. She had found that sometimes the humblest life holds the greatest wealth, and that real success is measured not in dollars, but in moments of connection. In laughter shared, in quiet mornings, in gentle hands. She had found home. Not just in a place, but in a person. And that was worth more than all the money in the world. As the stars began to appear overhead, James pulled her closer, and Nora rested her head on his shoulder finally. Completely at peace, the story of the art teacher and the billionaire. Pretending to be poor would become a legend in Meadowbrook, told and retold with warm smiles and knowing looks. But for Nora and James, it was simply their truth. The story of two people who found each other when they stopped pretending to be anything other than who they really were, and they lived. Not grandly or spectacularly, but genuinely and joyfully. Growing things together in the rich soil of an honest life,